All right. Again, thank you all for joining. I do think, no worries, Sunshine. I hope we'll get through some good stuff really right on the top, including stuff you already know about. So the I wanted to start by just saying I've been calling us the coalition. I had the opportunity to present before the school board, and I just kept going to that phrase. If anybody wants to form an ad hoc committee on getting us a better name, that would be awesome. But for now, the RDEP coalition is what I'm calling us. We're going to do some quick introductions. Actually, I should just change that to like nothing. But we're going to have some updates on planning and grant activities. That's going to be the bulk of what I'm going to share. I'm going to move one of the new coalition members up to this first part of the presentation because they've got something really interesting to share about kind of the importance of this work. And then we're going to kick it over to DHCD's broadband office with Chandler Vaughn and Cole McAndrew, who have actually been on the calls before, but this is going to be their first time to share what the state level office is doing, followed, of course, by some Q&A for those guys. And then an opportunity for coalition members to, the new coalition members to share what they're up to in the digital equity space and any closing comments that anybody has. So again, thank you all for making time for this work. Our planning activities remain the same. So we're doing some quantitative work and some qualitative work. On the qualitative side, we have plans that are just about set in stone to do some focus groups. We're really excited. We've got 4 focus groups that are going to be expected to be done. Barbara Wilson, who's not able to join us, I believe is actually right now letting the students know which groups that they're going to be in. But the expectation right now is to do a focus group with Piedmont Housing Alliance, the Jefferson Area Board of Aging, ACPS, Bright Stars, and Family Support. They're one of the new team members, and they're obviously coming from the ACPS side of things, but it's a really going to be a really great opportunity to engage with families that are in the school system who require some assistance, some support. And so we're really excited to work with those families. And then lastly, another new one that we were able to confirm, and that's Yancey Community Center. If you aren't familiar, the Yancey Community Center used to be one of our elementary schools. It's in the southern end of the county near the town of Esmond, Town to Keene, not really towns, I like to call them towns, but and they the area around there has experienced some of the severest generational poverty in Albemarle County. There are some descendant communities down there, so just generation after generation of struggle, and so that was presented as an option, and the students were really eager. So I reached out to Ed Brooks, who runs Yancey, and he's hopefully going to be able to do it. So those are the focus groups we're going to be doing. We have expectations to continue doing focus groups for a while because we want to reach as many cohorts. We're going to look also at focus groups that are looking at businesses, our commercial district, looking at you, Ashley, as well as focus groups with homeowners and people that just live in our development area. We can't focus on can't put blinders on. We have to try our best to get perspectives from every possible cohort within our population. So that's what we're doing. I will work with the teams that are doing these to see if it's possible for any of our coalition members to sit in as just observers on the focus groups. If you've never been involved in a focus group, it is a really, really interesting experience, both as a subject, but also as somebody that's just watching one happen. And so we're really excited to do them. And if anybody's interested in watching, I think that we can probably arrange that for one, if not all of these. On the quantitative side, this is where we're trying to use data that's available as well as data that we're collecting to analyze issues of digital equity. The data sets we're putting together are pretty broad. So we have administrative data. This is going to be data that hopefully we will have available to us that comes from an agency. It comes from an organization. This is kind of the most precious, but also the most valuable data because it's usually kept reasonably well up to date. and it is actionable data. So this is verified data. We're looking at ways to be able to use that. If that falls through, we're still going to have a lot of other data sets. That includes census data, American Community Survey data, our speed test and sentiment survey data. So that's the work that we've been doing with our broadband survey that we asked you guys to share. And thank you all for sharing. We've had a lot of good responses over the last several weeks. And then one option that we're looking at, and it's not one that I've worked much with, but our partner at UVA, Andrew Monstein, has spent some time with it, and that's public use microdata sample data. This is another data set from the census. And instead of just asking sort of generic questions that the ACS and that census does, this often is delving a little bit deeper into different cohorts and different questions. It's a little bit challenging because it's not got the same geographic spread as other data that they collect, but it's helpful if you're familiar enough with a particular population to get a nuanced feel for what are the issues that are affecting different populations. So we're going to let the students have a look at that data, which I think will be really, really interesting. The ACP outreach grants, we have had no movement, and it is killing me. We haven't heard anything from them. I checked in with our grants office to see if I'm just going crazy or whether we should have heard something by now, and they assured me that I'm just going crazy. So it's fine. Everything's fine. We just need to wait. But I'm still really, really eager to find solutions for moving forward with the program that we developed, even if we can't do it, whole hog, even if we don't have the full $700,000 that we asked for. We'd still love to find a way to put some of this in motion. But we will wait until March to find out whether we have the grant and whether we can move forward with them or find other alternatives. With that, I would actually really love to bring up Emily Policia from FIRE for a minute to share. We're doing this work because we're all dedicated to the idea of digital equity. And sometimes the outcomes are a little bit hidden from us, or they're outcomes that seem just kind of generalized, like, well, getting people internet's going to improve people's ability to access job training, education, entertainment. Those are all fine, but there are some ways that they're real world impacts. One of the ways that we've described this work that we're doing, and that we had an opportunity to do so before the school board, was to talk about what's known as digital parity. This is the idea that you actually look at the different spots, the different geographies, and you say, well, what in terms of access is missing compared to what you can find at a different spot? We know that our rural area is missing in a lot of ways. And cellular connectivity, not just for internet, but just to be able to make a basic telephone call, is really important. And so there was actually just before the call, Emily shared with me an incident that occurred that I think exemplifies this issue. So I'm going to see if I can spotlight Emily, and I'm going to stop sharing. And Emily, if you don't mind just sharing kind of at a high level what happened and what that represents for the crew.
Sure. So I shared with Jason. Can you guys hear me? Okay, just a thumbs up. Awesome. I shared with Jason the other day we had an incident in the area of Secretary Sands Road, Southern Albemarle County, that was a cardiac arrest, an older person who actually had a DNR, which is a do not resuscitate order, which means you don't have to continue efforts if you've been working. If the family can produce that and tell you it's a DNR and give that to you, then it makes that transition and stopping efforts much more smooth. But in this case, they didn't have it immediately, and so our crews, realizing that this was probably a futile effort, and at this point it was time to terminate the effort. We have to obtain medical control, so that means we have to call the hospital and let them know what we've been doing, and then a doctor gives us, authorization to stop efforts. We can do that on our own, but it's preferred that we get medical command to do so. And so we were working this incident, and when they went to do, call the hospital, no one had cell service. None of the providers had, and I think there were different, if I remember correctly, there were different carriers. So it wasn't just that, everyone had Verizon, it didn't work. It was nothing seemed to work. So they went out to the truck to try to use the radio to patch through, and that wasn't working well either. And so the radio signal was pretty poor, cell signal was poor. Family didn't have a landline initially. Eventually, they didn't know they had a landline. Eventually, were able to produce one. I think it was an old one. They might have. I don't know what happened there, but for a period of time, they were continuing efforts a little bit longer than they probably would have. And so, if that had not been a DNR scenario, or if that had not been an elderly person, if that had not been, had we needed, our medics are great, but sometimes they need advice from the doctor on which drug to try next. So, it could have been a lot more grave of a situation. As it was, the outcome was sad regardless. But really that connectivity was the piece that could have made the difference had that been a slightly different, scenario in terms of the patient. So that's one. It happens fairly, I won't say frequently, but it happens where the connectivity is such that we don't have good enough signal to do things like share video with the hospital, which we're able to do sometimes, is, shoot a quick video to the hospital to say, this is what we're looking at, on like an extended extrication with a bad car accident. It gives the trauma teams at the hospital the ability to get set up and know that we're coming and see that mechanism of injury firsthand. And sometimes we can't do that because video sharing, the signal's not strong enough for that. So that's just one example that happened in the last few days, but there are other examples that pop up here and there, and often in the areas where we know signal is tough. Southern part of the county is certainly one of those areas. There are pockets throughout that I'm sure Jason and some of you know better than me. But is that what
Yeah,
you were
that
looking
was
for, Jason?
that was great. And I'm sorry, I should have introduced you. A lot of you may already know Deputy Chief Emily Policia of ACFR. Emily, if you don't mind just sharing sort of what your role is, and then
Sure.
how that relates to digital equity, and how what sorts of things we think we can get done working in partnership with you.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So as Jason said, I'm in the fire department. I came from the city. I retired after 27 years over there, 28 years, and was very fortunate that the county had a spot, and I was able to come in and oversee the Community Risk and Resilience Division, which houses sort of your traditional, what you think of fire marshals, but we've really expanded the services that we do, and we're looking at a lot of the social inequities in the community, and all of which manifest as risk and challenges for people. And so, where we've historically been more land use focused and more the built environment focused in terms of the fire code and what we can do to enforce that, we've really expanded in the last 2 years. Some of you may know Titus Caston. He's one of our fire marshals, and we really expanded a lot of the role of the fire marshal to include looking at the social determinants of health on calls. And so our people are really, we're working with our ops personnel, our field personnel that run the calls, to really take a look at what's going on, and when they go to someone's house, and try and look more holistically and help identify where those gaps are and where those elements of inequity exist, so we can help maybe get a little further upstream and prevent these emergencies from happening in the first place. So that's really our focus, is this kind of comprehensive risk assessment for the county, looking at where that nexus between the inequities and the incidents happen are.
That's great. I appreciate that. And this is a great example of sort of how, when we are out in the community and we're just working with partners and doing our everyday jobs, we encounter somebody. I had no idea that the work that Emily was doing was so focused on addressing issues of inequity and how that relates to social determinants of health and how that relates to broadband, how that relates to sort of the work that we're doing. And so any opportunities that we have to just highlight that and to say, if you encounter somebody that you think should be a part of this group, you know, don't even let me know. Just go get them and just drag them over here. So thanks, Emily, for that.
Jason, if I could could I throw in one last comment?
Yeah, go for it.
The technology, the broadband and the use of technology was really highlighted for me at the beginning of COVID when I was at the regional EOC as the ops section chief, the operational section chief for the region, and we were suggesting and promoting and basically begging UVA to consider some type of telehealth option for us so that we weren't having to figure out how to take people to the hospital who were, you know, completely petrified of going to the hospital because they were watching the news in Italy and New York and areas that were hotspots. And so we were really, you know, seeing what could be possible, but we knew the infrastructure, what it ended up, you know, where we ended up landing with that was the infrastructure isn't there. And it would only further highlight inequity were we to try to implement something like that. So it's, you know, it's complicated, but there are so many sort of cases for improvement and use here and overlap that I'm excited that I ran into Jason and, you know, realized the work that was getting done and to be a part of this. So thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we appreciate it and welcome. So thank you, Emily. I'm gonna move you off everybody else's screen and I'm gonna go back to our presentation. And we're gonna talk about the DHC broadband office. So if I brought it up again, the school board meeting, the opportunity to present there, one of the things I highlighted is that all of the work that our office is doing and that I think the coalition is doing, it builds off of work that others have done in the past. And at the center of that in Albemarle County is my boss, Mike Culp. He's away this week on a much needed vacation and well-deserved vacation. And one of his partners for the last 10 years or so in this has been Tamara Holmes. Tamara Holmes is just, I mean, just an absolute go-getter of a person. And she, along with Mike, was working a decade ago and finding ways to get funding for broadband expansion to address inequities before we were all even considering this as an issue. And she was the founder of the DHCD Broadband Office, which, as she highlights, it manages expansion, broadband expansions and affordability programs, including VADI, which we've discussed before, which she describes as the nation's top broadband deployment program. And I couldn't agree more. And joining us from VADI is Chandler Vaughn and Cole McAndrew, who are policy analysts with the office. And so with that, Chandler, take it away.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, I appreciate all those comments. I mean, it's in terms of context, you know, in Albemarle County, I mean, they've been a leader in terms of broadband access deployment and are now going to be a leader again on the affordability and adoption front. So lots to learn from you guys. And I mean, I think it's great we can continue to follow the pattern of the state, at least building models of programs off of the experience you guys have in Albemarle and Charlottesville. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Cole for the first couple of slides. I'm Chandler Vaughn, work as a policy analyst in the office. And a lot of that has been focused on planning for forthcoming federal programs recently that we're going to get into.
Thanks, Chandler. Jason, can I just navigate forward?
Cole, we can't hear you.
Can y'all hear me now?
You're still pretty light.
Yeah, it's just faint. I think maybe you can adjust your microphone in Microsoft Teams under settings. But yeah, we always tell folks we're the Office of
How's this?
Broadband, not the Office of Technology.
All right, how about
That's-
this? Is this better?
That works. Yep.
All right, awesome. All right, sorry about that. That seems to happen every time now. All right, well, great. As Chandler said, DCD Office of Broadband. I'm Cole McAndrew. I'm a policy planner in the office, and right now I'm doing all of our digital equity planning grant activities, which we'll go into in a little bit. But yeah, so we're just going to give a brief overview of the Office of Broadband here. Go over some of our major activities and some of the things we have planned going forward. And try to go to the next slide here.
So we like to refer to broadband, and I think that Jason and Mike would agree that broadband is a three-legged stool between access, affordability, and adoption. That's an analogy that I think has been really rinsed and repeated throughout expansion conversations in the last year. But it's a good way to put it, right? Because without each one of those three components, we're not fully attaining digital opportunity in Virginia. So with that, can we go to the next slide, Jason? This is what our investment portfolio has looked like to date. Just to be upfront, honest, and frank, I mean, a lot of energy in Virginia has been focused on solving the access component of the digital divide and making sure that everybody has at least one service option in unserved areas. Albemarle has been a really big component of this. You guys have been successful in several VODI rounds now, and in partnership with different broadband providers, have been able to build out networks to a vast portion of the county that previously didn't have a single option for a service provider. So lots of good work going on that front. And what we're able to do now as a state is also turn the page to fold in broadband affordability and broadband adoption. And that's where this learning process comes again in an instance where we're going to be learning from what the work you guys are doing in Albemarle County and Charlottesville to be able to develop program designs for counties and cities across the entire state to be able to tackle this problem as well. So we're getting into affordability, getting into adoption. Cole's going to talk more about that later on, but I wanted to focus on and just give kind of a brief rundown of where we're at in access that would preview the conversation on those next two components as well. So the first couple things we like to feature are maps. I feel like sometimes a map is the best way to talk through where we're at in terms of the digital divide. And in Albemarle County, this is from a screenshot from our Commonwealth Connection mapping tool. We just collected service territory data from broadband providers, and it revealed that 87% of locations in Albemarle County currently have broadband access. That's represented in the orange there. Now, that doesn't mean 87% of the land area in Albemarle County has broadband access. You guys can see in those green areas, especially where there's VODI investment to build out networks, that's still the vast land area majority of Albemarle County that we're working on extending broadband networks to, and that those projects are under construction as we speak. And can we go to the next slide? And then one thing too, we don't get to talk about as much, but another feature of the map too is also identifying what community anchor institutions are around the county and city. So here you'll be able to see a highlight of the city of Charlottesville. It shows that it shows, at least on our map, there's 100% broadband access in the city of Charlottesville. I see Jason shaking his head yes. I think with a few exceptions, we think there's infrastructure in nearly all locations in the city of Charlottesville, maybe with the exception of a handful. So the issue there is, if we have broadband access, what are the next two barriers? Like, can folks fully afford broadband service in the city of Charlottesville and surrounding areas? If they have access and can they afford it, do folks know how to use it? I think everybody has the analogy of or story of like helping their parents do something online. I've got plenty of stories I can tell about helping my dad be able to do something as simple as attaching a PDF to an email, right? So I mean, just an example of very basic adoption of, folks have access, they can afford it, but do we fully understand how to use it? And there's a lot of other use cases too, like we heard about earlier with telehealth, smart farming, building a business online that also fall under, in our minds as a state, that adoption component of the digital divide. So we're still working on the access front. Here's a screenshot of counties that have come in for funding this year to the Virginia Telecommunication Initiative. There's still high demand out there for extending infrastructure to unserved areas. We had $300 million requested to provide service to a little over 100,000 locations, with only $50 million available. And we'll breeze through this one quickly, but the story to tell on infrastructure projects is that once they're funded, we wish we could, but those won't be built out as soon as they're announced. These projects are transformational for the communities that they're in, but they are infrastructure projects that are literally building lines down every roadway, telecommunications easement in counties and cities across the state. And here's just some updates about where we're at in terms of construction.
And if we can pause there for just 1 second, we have 2 active projects in Albemarle County right now that are VADI funded. There are actually several other projects that are privately funded. If anybody ever wants to just go see what this work looks like, reach out to me, and we can probably find somebody to help to let us just drive out to where they're working and just take a look at what the work looks like. It's not, it doesn't look high tech. It looks like the guy coming into your yard to put down an irrigation system or just doing construction work. And so if anybody wants to take a look at this, absolutely reach out to me, and we can probably find an opportunity to go look at some conduit and some fiber.
That's a great point, Jason. So this is the point of the presentation where we're talking about what's coming next for us as an office. We are still laser focused on being able to provide everybody a service option in the state of Virginia, Commonwealth of Virginia. We want to make sure that we're fully accounting for folks that don't have a single option for infrastructure, and when we get to those folks is our first priority. But through the Infrastructure Act, there's a program, the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, that will help us meet that goal of universal broadband access in the Commonwealth, but also be able to address components like broadband affordability and broadband adoption through some non-deployment uses that we can get into a little bit later. But Governor Youngkin has established our office as the lead for the BEAD program. We're in the planning phase now. We received $5 million in planning funds, which will do a suite of things. It'll help us adjust our existing program to meet the federal requirements of BEAD. It'll help us do some other things to streamline the deployment process. So, for example, there's a workforce development component to all of this, of making sure that we've got the fiber installation technicians to be able to do the work that we're funding in the field. And then also, and on the next slide, we're going to talk about planning opportunities for local governments to tackle affordability and adoption. Yeah, this is news you can use slide in terms of broadband affordability and adoption planning grants for localities in Virginia. Later on this spring, which today feels like summer, but assuming we go back to regular weather in the next couple of days, this coming spring, we'll be launching an opportunity for counties, cities, tribal governments in Virginia to apply for broadband affordability and adoption plans. And again, this is a disclaimer that you guys are fully underway in this process. So there's going to have to be a creative solution for Albemarle and Charlottesville to be able to participate and take your planning to the next level under this. But it is meant to be the introductory course, the 101 to how do we think about leveraging the infrastructure that's already out there or currently being deployed, and making sure folks can afford it and fully know how to take advantage of that service once it's been provided. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Cole to talk more about the other side of the digital opportunity.
Yeah, hey there. I'm having some, ironically enough, internet issues, so I hope all of you can hear me. Unfortunately, I'm not able to see the slides, but I have them here. Just somebody correct me, we're looking at the covered population slide for the Digital Equity Access Planning Grant Program.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so like Chandler said, we're looking towards our Commonwealth Digital Opportunity Plan. Just for those of you who don't know, Digital Equity Act also came out of the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act in 2021. We're currently in the state planning grant program phase of that grant program. So it's providing each state with money to come up with a state digital equity plan to access capacity grant funding to implement some digital equity programs in the future. These are the populations that are considered covered under the act. Um, you know, it sounds like kind of specific once you go through the list, but it actually comprises about, in total covers about 85% of Virginia. So we have individuals living in house. I won't go through all of them, but aging individuals, veterans, just individuals with disabilities, individuals in rural areas. It's a pretty wide list, but all the planning activities we do under the Digital Equity Act need to primarily address these covered populations in Virginia. So go to the next slide, or I guess I'll trust that someone is going to the next slide here. So Regional Digital Opportunity Plans, this is one of the sub-grant programs that we're running to develop our state plan. And what we're doing here is we're sub-granting funds to community action agencies, which are these great organizations in Virginia that they're really in touch with their communities, and they do great work in their local regional areas. And we're tapping into their networks to have them look towards digital opportunity issues. And I understand the nomenclature here, digital equity, digital opportunity, but we define it the same way. And we're having the community action agencies develop their own regional plans across 10 regions in Virginia. They partner up with a couple of different community action agencies in their region, develop a plan pretty much with the same format as our state plan, and we'll take all these plans, synthesize them, look for themes and data points that we can use for our Commonwealth Digital Opportunity Plan. We are bringing on a consultant to assist these community action agencies with some of the more technical parts of the plan, the stakeholder engagement and analysis, the asset inventory that's required under the Digital Equity Act Planning Grant Fund, we're having them do a survey tool for each of the community action agencies. So some of the more technical stuff, they're gonna have assistance there. We're bringing on a digital opportunity coordinator who's going to be running these programs full time, as well as any digital opportunity programs that we run under BEAD.
And as a shameless plug, if you know anybody that might be interested in applying, please send them our way. That's currently a live job posting we have out there in the community. I'm especially looking at Chris. If you know any folks that are in the digital equity space that are looking for a job, send them our way.
Yes, absolutely. That's a crucially needed position. So we have here the timeline. We're already a little bit off of this timeline, but we're hoping to get back on it pretty soon. Awards actually went out to the community action agencies on Tuesday this week, and we're meeting with all of them tomorrow to kick off the contracting phase, and then we'll get them started on their planning activities. So go to the next slide here, hopefully. So these are the regions that we compiled for the regional digital opportunity plans. There are 10 of them, 9 here on the map, and then the southeastern region is divided into two Hampton Roads regions. They have $500,000 in planning funds across all these regions. As you've all probably noticed, Albemarle is shaded blue, along with Alexandria and Arlington, and City of Charlottesville. That's because we didn't want to include areas that are already doing a regional digital opportunity plan in our planning efforts. Didn't feel the need to interfere with any existing planning efforts or reinvent the wheel there. Our plans are due, the regional plans are due to us August 1st, and then our state Commonwealth Digital Opportunity Plan is due October 1st to NTIA. So that's it there. And then, so this is, going to the next slide, this is something that we are currently releasing the guidelines for this week. It's another grant program that we're going to be using to develop the state digital opportunity plan, Commonwealth Digital Opportunity Plan, sorry. So this is a smaller grant program in the range of $10,000 each to organizations that are already doing digital opportunity work in Virginia. And sort of like the impetus for this was really just that there are a lot of organizations in Virginia doing awesome work in the digital equity space. And this is an opportunity for them to get involved in the planning process and have some skin in the game and bring their successful programs that do, successful digital opportunity programs into this planning process so that we can look to them in the implementation phase in a year or two. So we're going to essentially fund these organizations to write high-level, quick vignettes or case studies for us that we can include in the state plan as examples of successful programs, just to show NTIA that the work is already being done and that we're engaging with the groups that are the experts at this work. I'll go to the next slide here. Talk a little bit about the Affordable Connectivity Program, which is currently our primary affordability program. I know Jason already talked about it, and so I won't go too much into the actual program. I'm sure you're all familiar. $14 billion fund provides a $30 monthly subsidy, $75 for travel communities, travel households towards the cost of broadband services. We estimate that there are about anywhere from 1.047 to 1.1 million households eligible for the program in Virginia. So we're somewhere in the range of 30% enrollment. As Jason can probably tell you, it's a little difficult to put a completely accurate number on the number of eligible households because of the overlapping eligibility criteria. But this is our best guess that we're going on at this point. And we've actually found it to be pretty accurate so far across a lot of localities in Virginia. You can see here to the right is a map that sort of demonstrates regional disparities that we found in enrollment in the ACP. You might be able to notice here that in the Southeast, there's some pretty high enrollment localities. We have one, the city of Franklin. If anyone's ever been down there, is at this point probably close to 75, 78% enrollment. And they have no idea why, and neither do we. But you know, there are some potential issues with the ACP. One of them being that mobile service plans are eligible for the benefit, and the FCC has said that probably about 60% of recipients of the benefit are probably using it for their mobile service plan, which is better than nothing, but still possibly an area for concern. And then another area of concern is just outreach for the program, which we are hoping to solve with an ACP outreach grant application. If you go to the next slide. We also submitted an application for the FCC's outreach grant program. I didn't hear the exact number of what the size of Albemarle's request, but ours is around $190,000. We wanted to keep it quick, high level, tap into the populations that DHCD interacts with regularly. So and not get in the way of anybody else's outreach program, and not take up too much of the dedicated allocation for each state. But so we're really delegating a lot of the content to Education Superhighway, which is an organization that a lot of you are probably familiar with. They do a lot of promotion and nonprofit work for the Affordable Connectivity Program. And they have an awesome tool that helps people see if they're eligible for the program and then see eligible service plans in their area, stuff like that. Please try again. And then so that's pretty much it from me. Sorry about the technical difficulties there. Hopefully that didn't interfere too much with the presentation.
And just to add in what Cole was saying too, and the digital opportunity plan we're developing is going to be a document that's eventually put out for public comment, public input. We're doing stakeholder engagement sessions along the way. And this is not meaning to invite myself back to one of these calls later on in August or September, but because you guys will have been doing this planning effort for 6 or 8 months longer than us at this point, we'd love to have your feedback on that document to make sure we're not missing anything from a local perspective, because you guys are quickly becoming the experts in this space in Virginia, and we really want your input there.
Well, I appreciate you all coming on and sharing all of that. That was great. I'm going to kick off the questions by actually just moving back a few slides to, for you, Cole, slide 21 on the Digital Opportunity Case Study Pilot Program. I know we talked about the CAA and the planning grants that are going to sort of funnel down to areas that aren't Albemarle, along with Alexandria and Arlington. There's something about those A counties. But are we going to be eligible if we've got a good pilot project to take advantage of that case study pilot?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so the eligibility the groups that will be eligible for that program are local governments, nonprofit organizations. You know, the list of eligible entities for that program is actually just taken from the Digital Equity Act NOFO. So the same groups that are eligible for funds there will be eligible for this program.
That's great. And obviously we're going to see guidelines posted sometime very soon. So I will share those guidelines with all of you. And we can, at our next meeting, talk about options for submitting something that, $10,000 sounds small, but $10,000 can go a whole long way when the targeting is just right. And as we've already talked about, we need to reach all sorts of populations. We're doing a lot of that in some of the broader work. Yeah, so you can write a book for $10,000. But if you target the right population, you can really have a big impact with just $10,000. And a question from Kimberly that came across the transom: can that funding be mixed with funding from other initiatives? In particular, federal funding for projects. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think that there would be any reason that it couldn't be, as long as it's kept. Chandler might have a more specific answer on this, but I don't think that there would be any issue with that.
Right. I mean, we would just run a quick check on the funding sources and make sure there weren't any arbitrary federal restrictions around that. But like Cole said, I don't see any roadblocks there to be able to use other dollars as matching funds to that effort.
Chandler, I'm gonna hold you to I'm gonna call the principal on you. Arbitrary federal restrictions. Come now, there's no such thing. Awesome. How about anybody else? Anybody have any questions for Chandler and Cole?
Maybe while those are coming forth too, I think it would help to explain a little bit of the pilot program. And I'm sorry for the background noise, guys. In terms of the pilot program, it's something that we think about, a way to source good ideas. And when it comes to broadband infrastructure projects, they're easy. I say easy in quotations, to replicate between county to county, right? In terms of building a fiber network, you can bring in engineers, you can do the work, you can design a project, and we can fund that project to be able to expand infrastructure. And there's other intricacies in there too about what technology types you choose, if it's fixed wireless, but in terms of affordability and adoption, it's very population based, right? So, I mean, we've got to be able to, as a state broadband office, understand what works. And that's why the pilot program is what it is, to be able to understand what are good ideas. And if we fund $10,000 to a bad idea, at least we know it was not the best idea, at least in that context at that time. So would absolutely love if y'all came together and submitted an application, or if one of your organizations took this and ran with it. The more proposals we have to consider, the better.
Awesome. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to go back one more slide. Now we're on slide I don't know what slide it looks like for you, but this is the regional digital opportunity plans, the regions. I feel like it's worth asking, is Albemarle County and the city losing something by not letting you all do this work and bring your funding that you have available to this?
I think that's a good question. It's a fair question. I mean, I think that the item here that we just need to make sure is still included is interfacing with the community action agencies in Albemarle and Charlottesville. The big takeaway from involving action agencies is that they have a lot of interfacing with the covered populations under the Digital Equity Act. That's why they're engaged at that regional level to conduct these plans. So I think that as long as we make sure that you guys are connected and have a working relationship there, for one example, we need to make sure they're involved in a part of this group. I don't think you guys are missing out in terms of opportunities there. We just didn't want, by including you guys in a regional effort, to slow this group down in the work you guys are doing.
I appreciate that, and we will definitely plan on interfacing with the CAA that's designated for our area and bringing them in to share their thoughts. I think the other question that I have is a little self-serving, and that's when are we going to hear about VADI 23 and VADI 24? So for all of you, the VADI program, it's announced annually. Guidelines generally come out early, mid-spring, and then there's a selection process. Grants are generally submitted by August, with an award announced sometime in December, and so we're a little past 2 months from waiting for our award announcements, and so anytime when we're planning for what's going to be next for the county looking to apply for another VADI grant, we can't apply for VADI 24 without knowing whether we need to include VADI 23, and so we're eagerly waiting for those announcements.
Yeah, Jason, that's a fair question. I'm glad you asked it. I mean, and transparently, the way that process works is that our office makes award recommendations. We send that to the governor's office. The governor's office reviews it, times the award announcement. We're still in that iterative process in between there. There's been a couple of budget amendments introduced this session that have proverbially pressed the clutch in on announcements. So. Other than those two things, but we don't have an announcement date yet on awards. But I mean, just know that we're working to expedite that process internally and be able to get those out as soon as possible, because it is the first leg of the stool of this issue of broadband connectivity in the areas that lack a service provider now. So I wish I could be able to give you more specifics on that. I wish we could tell every county in the state that when we're going to announce and when they are going to get funding, but no additional details there quite yet.
And then the other question, I'll keep you on the hot seat for just a little bit longer. The last cycle, VADI 23, you guys introduced some provisions for applying based on ARPA guidelines such as reliability, affordability. Now we've been collecting the speed test data, and one of the goals there is to be able to look at solutions for resolving people's reliability and affordability issues through broadband expansions, and that generally represents what's known as an overbuild. So you have a provider that's already in place, their network's not reliable, or their network is expensive, and so you look for a project to bring a new competitor into that space, which should have the outcome. Economic theory tells us that it should drive prices down and increase reliability. Can we expect more of that, more opportunities to do that sort of thing in VADI 24?
That's an even hotter question, but it's a good one. So I think it's something that we will be considering during the BEAD program design, right? I mean, there will literally be hundreds of millions of funding that are available out there. I'll say, to date, and as the budget language reads for our programs, our purpose through an access component of our office is being able to provide a single service option to a location that provides service at broadband speeds. Now, you can get into the definitional argument there of, is broadband when it doesn't work 2 days a month. So I think that's something to consider under BEAD. It really is. But that conversation, the venue there is best had in a guidelines input session.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Anybody else have any questions for Chandler and Cole? Anything related to DHCD and its work? All right. Well, fellas, thank you so much. That was really, really helpful, and I appreciate you guys joining us. And as always, you guys are welcome to stick around, and welcome to stick around for all of these meetings. So with that, I wanted to spend a couple of minutes talking about our new coalition members. So since the last time we all got together, we were able to add a few people to the roster, and we've actually got a few more that are going to be added for next month. I wanted to Siri Russell had hoped to be here, and I don't see her yet, but she is the, gosh, I'm not going to get her title right, but she's now over at the School of Data Science as their equity and inclusion lead. And one of the things that, one of my great accomplishments during my time at the county is that I got to spend a few months working with Siri, at the Office of Equity and Inclusion, and it was an incredible experience. And so as soon as I found out she was going to be over at SDS, I wanted to connect with her and get her involved in this work as soon as possible. And so she is going to be joining this coalition and is going to be bringing her perspective and her awareness and knowledge to this work. And as part of that, she wanted me to share with you all that they're developing what's going to be a fellows program. And this isn't going to be internship style fellows where somebody's going to be able to just have one of their graduate students embedded to do some work with us for a while. And this isn't going to be a capstone where ultimately the goal is to generate a piece and a grade. This is actually going to be work more like a small consultancy, where they're going to have a group of fellows who are going to have the opportunity to tackle different projects. These are going to be well-defined projects. So the expectation is that they're going to have a portal open for projects to be submitted in August, with work to happen that fall. And I think that that's going to be a great opportunity for this coalition to follow up on the work that the students are doing this spring, to fill in any gaps, any data gaps or analysis gaps that we need, but also to take our analysis to that next level and see if there's anything else that we need to be looking at, anything that we need to address that we haven't already. And so be thinking about that work and what sorts of opportunities we might be able to have to engage those fellows at SDS. But now I wanted to ask Sue Moffett, who is with City's Department of Social Services, to introduce herself, share. I'm sure a lot of you already know her, and talk about the opportunities that this coalition represents for their clients.
Thanks, Jason. Hi, everybody. I'm Sue Moffett. I'm the director at the Charlottesville Department of Social Services. Jason has been bringing me up to speed on the broadband accessibility issues, which in the city, as you just heard, are really not that challenging, but certainly the affordability aspect. And then the third step is, are people using it or know how to use it or have the machines in order to make use of it is the challenge that we're facing. So we're really just getting started on this. We're really glad to be part of the coalition. And I think our ADA coordinator, I'm not sure if he's on here today, but that he's going to be joining these meetings also.
Excellent. Thank you, Sue. And I'd also like to bring on from Blue Ridge Health District, Jen Fleischer, who, again, I told you guys, sometimes you meet somebody and they introduce you to somebody else, and that is how this group grows. I met with Emily Policia several weeks ago. We immediately wanted to do more, and almost within an hour, I swear, she reached out to me and said, you need to meet with Jen Fleischer, because she's doing this over at BRHD, and so you guys need to work together. And so, Jen, do you want to share what you're doing, what you guys have done already, and then how it looks like we can work together in the future?
Thanks, Jason. Yes, I'd love to. And hello to familiar faces who I've worked with before. I'm Jen Fleischer. I'm the lead project manager at the Blue Ridge Health District. And if you're wondering what health has to do with digital broadband access and affordability and adoption, it's everything. So we have published the 2022 Map to Health report in partnership with UVA Health and Centera Martha Jefferson. And that report prioritized digital access and literacy as a leading improvement policy target for the district as a whole. So even beyond Albemarle and Charlottesville. We have now moved into, now that that's been assessed, evaluated, and identified, we're moving into the community health improvement plan phase, which is going on now. And that's the kind of sequential order of how the health assessments go. And we are happy to be part of this coalition because we're looking to amplify and promote any organizations, agencies, et cetera, who are working in particularly digital literacy, or as Chandler and Cole called it, adoption, programs that improve literacy and access from the adoption side of things for older adults, folks of all abilities, and are actively working in that area. So we are trying to convene the group that's working in that area now. And so if essentially I'm requesting that anyone who gets an email from me or reaches out to me responds to say, yes, I'm working in this area and I would like you to promote and amplify our services. The goal for the CHIP, the improvement plan, is to announce in April to the public that multiple organizations, agencies, nonprofits are working in the 5 priority areas identified by the Map to Health, and that we want community will behind this plan as we start to solidify it. Ultimately, we publish the solidified plan in June, and to get the community on board to assist in your or participate in your initiatives and maybe even implementation, and help kind of move the needle on health through the digital landscape. So I'm going to just be a little proactive, or maybe I'm just bullying this group right now, and put my email in the chat. So if you're working in the literacy arena, if you would reach out, we can help convene. Some players already, Jefferson, Madison Regional Library System, and PDCC. We're working with ACPS, but would love to hear from you and help get together and realize that we can't individually move the needle nearly as much as we can collectively, and that we would like to stand behind those efforts and help improve the overall health of the county, city, and the district at large. Okay, I'm done with my shtick. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, Janet. And I'd just like to highlight that Map to Health initiative that you guys did. I'm still blown away. So every day that I work on RDEP issues, and I'm like, oh man, I've got a list of 36 people representing about 15 different organizations, and I'm emailing them and trying to get them all like working together and helping me like do these great big huge things. And just to think that you had a list, what was it, like 87 different organizations? Like that's just soul crushing to me in terms of the idea of working with that many people all at once and keeping all of the cats herded, but also just so laudable that you guys were able to coordinate all of that and generate a really fantastic guiding document, I think. So thank you for that, and thank you for the inspiration. All right, well, thank you all for joining us for this. I think it's been great. We've only got a few people left on, so just open the floor. Does anybody have anything else that they wanted to bring up? Any projects, initiatives that they wanted to highlight that they're engaging in?
Jason, I just wanted to kind of give you a high five. I attended that National Digital Inclusion Alliance webinar earlier in the month.
Yeah.
And the focus was, developing a coalition, setting up a coalition for digital inclusion. And I got to tell you that participating in that hour-long webinar, I don't want to give shade, but I didn't learn a whole lot, because you've done such a great job. Seriously, you've done such a great job implementing those strategies and doing the do, if you will. So you've been walking the walk. And I just wanted to, applaud you for your efforts. You and your team have been working so hard, and it shows, because as a consumer of new information, I thought, hey, I've heard this. Somebody already told me this, and it was Jason. So I just wanted to give you a little applause there.
I appreciate that. Like I said, I build on what other people have built. And NDIA actually has a conference next week that I'm going to be at called Net Inclusion, and I've already signed up for more conference slots, more things than I can actually be in attendance for. So I hope to come back with even more bucket loads of information to share and opportunities to help get this work done. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
If there's nothing else, I feel like there was one other thing I wanted to highlight for everybody. Yeah, no, that's all. All right,
Jen, it's
Wanda,
good to see you.
Wanda, Robert, Phil, Kimberly, anybody have anything?
Nope, good job.
Nope. All right, well, thank you all, and I will get you guys out early. Have a great day. Enjoy the weather.
Bye.
Everybody take care.
Bye.
Bye.